Hi guys, chapter 8. We are finally going to be talking about solving equations. We've done a little bit of solving equations so far this year, but you've been given specific steps for specific equations. In this chapter, you're going to learn about how to solve any equation. So we're going to start off pretty basic. What you need to know right now is that we're going to be using inverse operations. So an inverse operation are opposite operations that undo each other. So addition and subtraction are inverse operations, and then multiplication and division are inverse operations. So what that means, if I were to add 5 to something, then subtract 5 from that same something, you undid that addition. So basically you ended up doing nothing. So we're starting with one-step equations, starting with addition. So if we have b plus 7 equals 12. So first thing we're going to want to do is draw a line down through our equal sign, because what's important is anything I do to one side of my equation, I must do to the other side. It's kind of like a seesaw. In order to keep it balanced, you have to do the same thing to both sides. So if I see that I'm adding 7 to b, my goal is to get my variable isolated, so I need to get rid of this plus 7. So my inverse operation of adding 7 will be to subtract 7. If I do it on this side of the line, we have to do it on that side of the line. Now, a positive 7 minus 7 will give us 0, so that zeroes out. We're left with b equals, and then make sure you actually do your subtraction on this side. So 12 minus 7 gives us 5. So my solution is b equals 5. Now you see it says to solve and check. The way that we check is to go back to our original equation. I'll do my check in red here. So b plus 7 equals 12. If I substitute in the value that I just got, so 5 plus 7 equals 12. Now simplify this down. 5 plus 7 is 12. So we get 12 equals 12. It checks out. We solved it. We checked it. We're correct. Okay, so next one. I see x plus 24 equals negative 52. Again, we're going to start by drawing our line down. I'm trying to isolate my x. I see that I'm adding 24, so my inverse would be to subtract 24. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Positive 24 minus 24 gives me 0. So x equals negative 52 minus 24. They're both negative. So I end up with a negative 76. Okay, so now we do our check. So x plus 24 equals negative 52. Substitute in the value we just got. So negative 76 plus 24 equals negative 52. Now actually do the check. There's no point in doing our check if you're not actually going to figure this out. So negative 76 plus 24. If I put that in my calculator, or I subtracted it in my head, added it in my head, depending on which way you want to think about it, that does give me a negative 52. So negative 52 equals negative 52. It checks out. Solution is correct. Okay, so there's some inverse operations with addition. The other part that we're going to do with this lesson would be subtraction. So c minus 13 equals 64. Again, draw our line down. If the inverse of addition is subtraction, then the inverse of subtraction will be addition. So if I see c minus 13, again, trying to isolate this c, get it by itself, we're going to add 13 to both sides. Negative 13 plus 13 zeroes out. So c equals 64 plus 13 gives us 77. Still do our check. When you guys are solving equations, you should always know if your answer is correct, because we will ask you to do a check. If you do your check correctly, you should see that your answer is correct. So substitute in our 77. 77 minus 13 does give us 64. So 64 equals 64. That is correct. So I know that c equals 77. Okay, last one. Still subtraction. Still going to start by drawing our line down our equal sign. D minus 2/7 equals 3/14. Again, trying to isolate that variable. I see subtraction, so I know my inverse would be addition. So plus 2/7. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. Negative 2/7 plus 2/7 zeros out. So D equals, remember when we are adding or subtracting fractions, you have to have like denominators. So I see I have a 14 here, so I'm going to multiply both of these by 2. I'm just going to rewrite it to the side here as 4/14. So 3/14 plus 4/14 gives us 7/14, which I know I want to reduce. So D equals 1/2. Make sure when you guys are doing fractions that you always reduce. So we do our check. Go back to my red. D minus 2/7 equals 3/14. Substitute in, so 1/2 minus 2/7 equals 3/14. Now we need like denominators. I know my denominator is going to be 14. So 2 times 7 gives me 14, so then 1 times 7. 7 times 2 then gives me 14, so then 4 over 14. Checking if that equals 3/14. I'm going to go off the side here. I know I ran out of room. You may have also run out of room. 7 minus 4 does give us our 3/14 equals 3/14. It checked. I now know my answer is correct. Remember guys, when you see fractions, operations are exactly the same. Nothing changes. We have calculators that you can use in class if you need them. So don't let them scare you. Alright, so there are some examples of adding and subtracting when we are solving equations. Starting off with some basic 1 steps here. We'll add in some more operations later. So some now you tries. I want you to solve and check. I need to see the solve and the check in order to get full credit. So our first question is D minus 6 equals negative 24. And then we have W plus 18 equals 18. All right, that is your first lesson on solving equations.